Yes. New Varlamore boss, you say? Mid-level content, you say? Ice climbers, hammers, you say? Well, I say less, Jagex. Let's talk about the Amoxliatl, however you say it. All right, guys, I'll be the, I don't know, man. I'm probably like the 30th person to make a guide on this. I'll be the not first person to say I love this boss. The Amoxliatl is an amazing mid-level boss considering its mechanics and overall just grindability. The first time I fired up the old Dell Optiplex to check this boss out, I remember telling my wife, after about 20 minutes, this is probably the best content Varlamore has come out with so far. She responded with, "You love that game more than me," but I mean, that's just, I guess that's just the way she goes sometimes. You know? Point being, this is a fantastic boss in my mind for one major reason. The mechanics of this boss are perfectly tuned to mid-level players and help teach you one extremely important thing you're going to need to learn in your RuneScape journey, which is player versus environment interaction. With the Amoxliatl fight, you have to learn to dynamically interact with not just the boss, but the environment around you. You have limited tiles and space to move around during this fight, and that space continues to shrink, meaning yes, this fight is a DPS race, but it's not so impossibly hard that one mistake's going to cost you. It's really just a good mid-level boss that teaches you useful mechanics you're going to need to know for fights like Phantom Muspa, Vorkath, TOA. Anyway, I'm going to get off my soapbox. Let's dig into it. So let's start with the prerequisites before starting. All you need is the quest, the Heart of Darkness, completed. If you don't have it, here's a fun guide made by a pretty cool dude on how to do it. Aside from that, you don't need anything. Really short and sweet. So equipment. This boss is meant to be an entry to mid-level boss, so let's step back in time and imagine we all have accounts that mimic that. This is an easy part of the prep as well. Bring melee gear with a crush style weapon. The Amoxliatl is much weaker to crush weapons than anything else, and one of the mechanics requires you to do very quick damage to 1 to 4 blocks of ice in quick succession. These blocks of ice are only damageable with melee, which makes magic somewhat difficult to run with here as well. Since the Amoxliatl has a mechanic where you have to destroy ice blocks very quickly, and it has a very weak armor base, bringing a weapon that does damage in multiple hit splats works very well here. Think like the Scythe, the dual Amoxliatl, Soul Reaper Axe, etc. For my humble examples, I went with the dual Amoxliatl combined with the Blood Moon set for Moons of Peril, mainly because it's a much easier to get mid-level item and gear setup and bonks those ice blocks really fast. Obviously, if you don't have this, just bring whatever your best strength gear and crush weapons are, making sure to snag a somewhat quicker crush weapon just to deal with the blocks of ice. All of the boss's damage is avoidable. You're probably not going to avoid all of it, especially in the beginning, but once you get good, you're going to find yourself bringing much more prayer potions compared to food. Speaking of which, inventory for the Amoxliatl. You're going to be looking at your standard boss fight setup here. Emergency teleports, a teleport to get to the boss. The pendant of the H drops from this boss and is the preferred way to get there. A special attack weapon like the Burning or Dragon Claws, Dragon Dagger, or in my example, I use an SGS just to heal a little extra when you're first learning. Outside of that, I do bring runes for Thralls and Death Charge, but that is completely optional. I like to use Thralls personally, and it will speed up your kill time a little bit, and the Death Charge just gives me more opportunities to dump my spec into some extra health. If you do bring runes for this, make sure you're in the Arceus spellbook and have your Book of the Dead. Early on, you're going to bring more food than prayer potions, and that ratio is going to slowly start to favor the potions more as you get better. I will admit something pretty sacrilegious here. I do not use piety for most bosses in OSRS. I know, shame on me, but I do use it here, since the boss is a DPS race. You should too if you have it. This is 100% a boss for maximum damage output is extremely helpful. Finally, a combat pot for when you're feeling squirrely. Alright, you have equipment and inventory, let's talk mechanics. So the Amoxliatl mechanics. As I said earlier, this is where the boss really shines, man. A true player versus environment fight. Really gets the yams humming, let me tell you. Amoxliatl is a one-phase fight and only has 3 mechanics you really need to worry about. As soon as you enter the boss's lair, you're immediately going to begin the fight. So obviously make sure you drink your pots and be ready before you enter. Once you enter, the boss will begin to attack you with her standard attacks. These can be completely mitigated by using Protect for Magic, so keep that up at all times. Really simple. What's not simple is the first and probably most important mechanic of this whole fight, the Icy Pools. So every standard attack, Amoxliatl will summon spikes of ice on the ground. One will always be under where you are standing, and the others will be spread all throughout the area, indicated by the circles forming on the ground tiles. This mechanic has 2 parts that you need to deal with. The first is really simple. Just move to a tile that doesn't have a spike forming. You're going to need to find a spot that is 2 tiles away from you or less. Otherwise, you're not going to get out in time and get hit with the spike damage. In this example, you can see the spike circles and if I want to go to an open space, I need to go to one of these locations. Find your spot and get there. Now for the second part of this mechanic, which is the actual icy pool. So every time the spikes pop up, there will be an icy pool that permanently remains on the ground you were originally on after the spikes disappear. This pool is basically a no-no tile now. You cannot stand on it. If you stand on it, you're going to get hit for 6 to 10 typeless damage per tick. If you run over it, you're also going to get hit for a tick. One nice little tip to make here, you can run trick over it, meaning if you're standing adjacent to that tile and then you run across it, you will not take the damage. A pretty standard run trick tool you can use. Now this is where the player versus environment aspect of this fight really comes into play, as well as the DPS race. You're dealing with a limited amount of space, and that space is shrinking as the fight progresses. Each icy pool serves as a new, floor is lava mechanic that you have to be aware of. It's dynamic, it's fun. Let's talk about how to beat it. So after testing this boss for a few days, I noticed a very simple way to beat the icy pool mechanic. It's pretty simple. All you need to do is just move 2 tiles back. Okay, so I say this is simple, but it's not, because the spikes are not mappable and predictable, but this strategy has still worked pretty well for me. The essence of the 2-space strategy is easy. Every time you have a standard attack coming, look for an open tile that is 2 spaces behind you, meaning it could be any of these 3 tiles here. In this example, you can see I have this tile available to run to. It's only 2 movements away, meaning I'll get out of the spikes before they hit. Now, the reason I say move 2 tiles out is because of the icy pools. That original location I was standing on is now an icy pool, meaning I can't stand there again. If I had only moved 1 tile back and dodged the spikes, when I click the boss to resume attacking, the boss has not moved, meaning I hold the risk of my character moving back onto the icy pool. But since the Amoxliatl is a 3x3 boss, moving 2 tiles away will make it move up 1 tile towards me, causing the boss to walk over my newly created icy pool. I think you guys can slowly see where I'm going here. By moving 2 tiles back, I'll cause the Amoxliatl to move 1 tile forward, which will always cover my newly formed icy pools. That way, I can just click on the boss and not have to worry about which tile my character is going to move on. Doing this is slowly going to create a really nice, straight-ish line of icy pools my character can easily avoid, since I'm only moving in one direction. The only caveat to this strategy, as I said earlier, is there will be times where the spikes don't perfectly line up in one of the 3, golden tiles 2 spaces behind you. I would say this probably happens about 20 or 30% of the time. When it does happen, the 2 tile strategy would still apply, only this time you may need to move left or right or even forward underneath the boss. This is probably where most people are going to struggle and get hit while learning, but just trust the process, because as you make mistakes and get hit, you're going to get much better and much faster. This is definitely something that slowly builds your instincts on how to fight this boss. When it comes to the standard attacks in the icy pools, I would always recommend trying this 2 tile strategy. Then as you get better, you can move into a much more dynamic omnidirectional movement strategy of your own. Oh, and also for those of you who aren't getting about an, I'd say 80-ish second average kill time, you're probably going to find points where you run out of space behind you, which is totally normal. At that point, I would look at the boss lair as 4 different areas. You just move the boss as far east as you can. Now maneuver yourself in the boss and start moving as far west as you can. Or you could go north and south. It's up to you, man, whatever makes you comfortable. Either way, give this a shot. Hopefully you'll get the hang of it. So yeah, I just spent all that time on one mechanic, sorry. I'm not sorry. It's the most important mechanic, and I want y'all to learn how to do it properly. It'll help a lot for boss fights later on in your RuneScape career. Now for the other 2 mechanics. So Amoxliatl will continue to do standard attacks and drop icy pools throughout the fight. After every 2 to 4 standard attacks, she's going to use one of her 2 special attacks, which are Unstable Ice and Icicle Crash. Icicle Crash is definitely the easier of the 2 to deal with. Basically, she's just going to turn off your prayers, and you need to reactivate Protect from Magic before the big Sims icy plumb bob thing hits you. Just turn your prayers back on, really easy. If not, you're gonna get absolutely bitch slapped for like 30 plus damage. Holy shit. The other mechanic is the Unstable Ice. During this, the boss will shoot out 1 to 4 secret boxes of ice on the ground around her. You're gonna have like 9 seconds to destroy all of those boxes before they explode, healing the boss for a lot of health, and more importantly, just completely covering the ground with so many icy pools, you know it's time to hit that big log out button. So for this mechanic, if someone tells you, oh, just ignore the blocks, don't fucking listen. The icy pools created from not killing these blocks is an absolute nightmare to deal with. This is why I recommend bringing a faster crush weapon to this fight, so you can quickly defeat the blocks. As you can see in the video, the dual Amoxliatl makes really quick work of these things. If the boss is, I'd say maybe like sub 50 HP and you know you can kill it before the ice blocks go off, you can definitely skip them or ignore them then, but again, now it's a very fast DPS race. Either way, make sure you kill the blocks before the 9 seconds hit. A quick note to make on the unstable ice. So obviously you're going to need to run over to kill the blocks. This can be a real pain in the behind for someone trying to do the 2-tile strategy. Fear not, friends, here's a crazy workaround. Just kill the blocks, then go back to the boss in a position where you know you'll be able to continue 2-tile strategy really easily. Note the example on the screen. I bonked the blocks, then I saw the open space back here. I know if I move somewhere around here, I'll be able to easily continue my 2-tile strategy. 500 IQ move. Anyway, that's all the mechanics. Pretty cool, huh? With my Blood Moon set and somewhat mid-level stats, I was getting around probably like 80-second kills, and with proper consumable management, I would say I can get anywhere from 10 to 20 kills a trip, which was pretty good, at least in my mind. Again, I'm not a master of this game. I would get hit all the time, and I always take a little bit of damage, but, you know, I'm okay with admitting that, to be honest. Getting to a point where it's your prayer that makes you have to leave, not your health, is always the goal in my mind. All right, so let's talk loot. Really cool pet. Ice Climber hammers. And teleport necklace to get back here easier. That's really it. I don't know what else to say here, but I have to make this section 10 seconds so I can mark it on the YouTube video. And there you have it. The Amoxliatl. That's actually how you pronounce it. Really well-made fight. It will teach you a lot about PvE mechanics, something I feel the mid-game desperately needed. I will happily give this boss a fun grind badge of honor. Congratulations, you, fucking popsicle. Anyway, if you were successful in amoxiling the latl, congratulations, friend. You did it, and no one can take that away from you. Do me a massive favor, and we can like the video, leave a nice comment, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already together. For evergreen content like this, it makes an immeasurable difference because it shoots this video all the way up to the top of YouTube and Google's recommendations, which is a night and day difference from my channel's performance, let me tell you. Thanks for hanging out with me. Good luck, have fun, and I'll see you on the next one.